Hello everybody, this is GeneralJannis, and today we're talking about the Helbrutes for Death Guard, maybe not so popular choice of vehicles for our army, but now at 115 points and with new rules, can they bring the melee hurt to the enemy? A melee frenzied Death Guard Helbrute, is that a way forward? So let's get started. So today, the 31st of May, I've already covered a lot of the units from the Death Guard Codex, and I'm continuing now with the Helbrute. So now I have we can have a more full comparison of all the vehicles for Death Guard. So in this video, I will be looking at the Helbrute review, looking a bit at the lore of Helbrutes, the datasheet, the weapon options. There are multiple weapon options now, new abilities from the datasheet, the damage output of the weapons, and also different configurations. Also looking at the durability, which typically is not a strong point from the Helbrutes, overall per point comparison to the other Death Guard vehicles, and a summary and final thoughts. Before I start, a very big shout out and special thanks to all my YouTube member GeneralJannis supporters. So especially also welcome to Mike Pierce, who is also I recognize from the Patreon previously that I shut down and now just continue on YouTube. So welcome Mike and all of you. I really appreciate your support and I enjoy answering your comments and suggestions for new videos. So looking now at the Helbrutes, just the background and the lore. So basically a wounded heretic Astartes that has been so severely wounded that he cannot be patched up by, say, by a plague surgeon or something like this. Even for the plague marines that have, for example, very high durability and can live with a lot of ailments and stuff like that. If they are really damaged, they can also continue their serving the Legion by being merged and locked in within the metal confines of the Helbrute. So basically the Helbrute is the chaos equivalent to a dreadnought, and all the chaos factions they have them, and chaos space marines and Thousand Suns and world eaters and things like that. And to be locked inside the Helbrute is a bit nightmarish, and they can be a bit insane and psychotic in these confines. And they are in the lore, they are kept in chains when not in combat and unleashed at the foe to bring a lot of damage and destruction. And I remember when I was reading the Lords of Silence book, excellent book, I recommend it to everybody that hasn't read it. Naum is basically he's called the Dreadnought, but basically a Helbrute that can do quite a lot of damage in the Lords of Silence. So now moving on to the Helbrute's datasheet, we know that it's only costing 115 points now, and we have some major changes, and the main changes are basically the ability. Previously, they could afflict a unit by shooting from the distance. Now we have the Plague Marines that can do that, or detachment rules. But now instead of that, it's each time it attacks an afflicted unit, you add 1 to the wound roll. So this is quite strong, and this will always be active in melee with Nurgle's Gift. And if something else has shot at an enemy is afflicted or it's inside contagion of another one, it will also benefit the shooting. But in melee, they will always be +1 to wound. So this is really strong. Also, further enhancing the melee capabilities now of the model, the Froth Spattered Frenzy, the melee frenzy here. If the model has 2 choices of the melee weapons, it gains 2 attacks for both weapons. It can't use both weapons, of course. There's not extra attacks, but gaining 2 attacks. For example, the Helbrute Fist, instead of 5 attacks, it will be having 7 attacks. The Hammer, instead of 4 attacks, it will be having 6 attacks. So of course, much more damage output for a pure melee Helbrute in melee, and always +1 to wound, which is quite strong, especially versus tough targets. Another change, the Helbrute is a bit faster now. Instead of 6 inches, it's 7 inches. It's not super fast, but at least it's a bit faster. And from its variety of weapons, the multi-melta, the plasma cannon and the twin autocannon now have added and gained lethal hits, so always helpful. The twin autocannon has become strength 10 now instead of strength 9. And the Helbrute Hammer is now hitting on 3s. Previously it was only hitting on 4s, but it has 1 less attack now. But it's better to have 4 attacks with 3+ than 5 attacks with 4+. So as a summary, the Helbrute, I think it gained this nice ability of +1 to wound. It has many weapon options and more focused for melee, at least in the Death Guard Codex. If we look at the Helbrute's weapon options, I try to illustrate it like he has two arms. So basically in one you can have the fist, you can have or you can replace it with a multi-melta, the Helbrute plasma cannon, autocannon, twin heavy bolter and twin las cannon. And in the other one it's basically melee Helbrute fist or hammer or the power scourge or the missile launcher. The missile launcher, as I will show you in the data, is a bit lackluster. So on this side, it's better to keep melee. And the question is if you make it a mixed, like only melee, or you have melee plus some shooting weapon on the other side. For the Helbrute fist, you can equip it. Each of the fists that it has can be equipped with either a combi bolter or a heavy flamer. And as we said, if you take the fist together with some of the other weapons here, you get +2 attacks for all these weapons in melee. And here in this big, rather busy table, I'll try to walk you through the Helbrute's baseline damage output for all its weapons. So if we start here with the missile launcher, it has two profiles, the frag and the crack missile profile, and we can see here damage expected wounds on a variety of targets from the lowly termagants and guardsmen up to a big knight. And as we can see, the frag missile launcher only does a little bit of damage. The crack missile not super strong either, maybe one wound against the rhino if you're a bit lucky. So it's not like a very strong profile for the missile launcher, as one of the, it was the only option if you only wanted to have shooting weapons. Then on the other side we have a lot of shooting weapons, the multi-melta, the plasma cannon, the twin autocannon, las cannon and the twin heavy bolter. And here we can see higher damage than the missile launcher. Here you can see the average versus the infantry targets, average versus the vehicle targets. And here if the multi-melta is at 9-inch, it has some quite good damage both versus infantry and vehicles. The plasma cannon can also do some good damage, but at range, but it's a hazardous weapon, so you will have to risk taking mortal wounds on a hazardous test. The twin autocannon is a bit lackluster. The twin las cannon is better versus vehicles compared to at long range at least, but not so good versus infantry as expected. And the twin heavy bolter not very strong before we attach some buffs or improvements. These are all these shooting weapons here. I haven't assumed the +1 to wound. They are not shooting at an afflicted target. I'll show you that in the next table. And then if you combine the option for the fist, the heavy flamer or the combi bolter, so the heavy flamer is better, but of course the combi bolter has the range advantage. But if you are building your Helbrute to go in and do wreak havoc in melee, the heavy flamer I think is the best option here. And then if we look at his melee weapons, the close combat weapon, if you only took, let's say, missile launcher plus another shooting weapon, you would only have this lackluster damage in melee. But here we can see now the main armaments of the Helbrute fist, the Helbrute hammer and the power scourge. This is a +1 to wound, of course, included here with contagion. But here I haven't chosen to give them +2 attacks. This is down here. So we can see here that for the horde type infantry, the power scourge is better. For elite infantry, the Helbrute fist is better. And finally, the hammer is better for anything that is a vehicle. It has much higher damage output compared to the fist or the scourge here. So the hammer, of course, the very nice damage versus vehicles. And if we add if we take, let's say, a fist plus a hammer, or we add them in dual melee configuration, we have +2 attacks, so the damage increases quite considerably. Yeah, it's really good. I think if you have probably if you want to go dual melee configuration, you probably want to have the hammer to be able to do a lot of damage versus vehicles down here. And then it's better to take, in my opinion, the fist. Even if the power scourge could be better versus chaff enemies, but remember also that in the Helbrute fist you would also be gaining the flamer here, and then you will be doing more damage than the power scourge. So forget the power scourge and the missile launcher, forget about it. So basically from this, if you want some of the other weapons, maybe multi-melta, plasma cannon, or twin las cannon could have their uses. So if we look now at buffed shooting damage output, so now the enemy suffering is afflicted, and we have the contagion of -1 save, and then I also added if we have the Lord of Ireland's Blight Bombardment, where we reroll once to hit, or the blast weapons will be rerolling all to hit. So here we see the missile launcher, +1 to wound, shooting at afflicted target with contagion -1 save. Still quite lackluster, the average damage compared to the other weaponry here. Even with rerolling once, not very strong, or rerolling all for the frag. Yeah, so the missile launcher is very lackluster. The multi-melta is quite interesting, especially at 9-inch range, and if we have the buffs +1 to wound, and we also have the blight rerolling once to hit here, it can do some nice damage versus vehicles, but you have to be at 9-inch range. The plasma cannon, overall some good damage. It's a blast weapon, so we'll be rerolling all to hit, lethal hits. It's hazardous, but +1 to wound, you can do some damage from 36-inch range. The twin autocannon and the twin las cannon, a bit more lackluster here compared to the other options when you start buffing them. The twin heavy bolter, with being buffed by rerolling once to hit and +1 to wound, starts to become a bit interesting. Best damage of the shooting weapons versus infantry with rerolls, and also not so bad against vehicles. And then still the heavy flamer is better with +1 to wound. It's still better than the combi bolter that can be buffed, but it's never coming to the heavy flamer type. And here I've selected 4 configurations to calculate. So first of all, we have the Helbrute with the fist and the flamer on the fist, plus the hammer. So here we have 2 melee weapons. This is shooting at 12 inches. This is just basically the flamer, but it has +1 to wound here. And then here in melee, here we start to get the big damage versus vehicles. So 15 wounds on the Rhino, or 13 wounds on a Land Raider is not bad. From one Helbrute for 115 points here. So this is the total damage shooting and melee. And if we took another configuration where we took, for example, two fists with 2 flamers, basically, yeah, 1 fist, 2 times fist and a flamer, then we get a bit more shooting damage, and we get also a good melee, but this is more stronger versus infantry, not as good versus tough targets as the hammer and fist combination here, but you get a bit more shooting with a flamer, and you can also be overwatching some infantry here. And then I have some mixed configurations here, for example, the multi-melta and the hammer, but they are not as good as the dual melee configurations here. Here also the plasma cannon and the fist and the flamer. You can do a bit more shooting from distance, but again, not as good damage as what you have with the dual melee configurations. Now moving away from damage output to looking at the baseline durability. This is not point corrected. So here I have a variety of weapons attacking our vehicles here, from the Helbrute, the Furtive Blow Drones, Mephitic Blight Hollow Profile, the Predator, the Defiler, and the Plaguebear Crawler, and a Chaos Knight Wardog as comparison here. And here you can see how many weapons of this type it would take to destroy a Helbrute. So for example, 108 Storm Bolters at half range it would take on average to kill one Helbrute. So it has some, and here you can see the average of these weapons, and if you compare across, we see it's better than, with a 2+ save and toughness 9, it actually has a better durability versus light weapons, light weapon fire here compared to the Furtive Blow Drone, but it's not as durable as a Defiler or a Plaguebear Crawler here, or even a Wardog Knight. And then, but when we come to the heavy weapons, then it only has 8 wounds, and the other have 10 or more. So then it's not very durable. So it doesn't take a lot of autocannons or entropy cannons or something to take it out, laser destructor or something like this. So for the average damage it can take from heavy weapons, the durability is lower than all the other vehicles that we have, and this is before we even do the point correction here. And it also, of course, lacks an invulnerable save like the Predator. So now coming to the overall per point comparison. So everything now is point corrected, everything we have seen up to 100 points, and also comparing to all the other Death Guard vehicles I've analyzed so far, from the first blow drones, Mythic Blightholder, Defiler, Plague Scroller, and the Predators. And what we see here is the damage versus the average of the infantry targets per 100 points, and we have at long range 24-inch, 12-inch, and melee damage output. And also here we have the damage versus the GeneralJannis vehicles, the average there from 24-inch down to melee. And we also have the durability index. Now this is a point corrected to 100 points, and with an index 100 versus light weapons we have the intercessors, and versus for heavy weapons index 100 is the Space Marine Predator. And we can see if we start with the durability index versus light fire, it's quite nice. It has a nice durability here with a 2+ save, so close to the normal footed blow drones or the Plague Scroller, better than for example than Predators. But versus heavy weapons it's on the bottom side. It doesn't have the invul and only 8 wounds as we said, so a bit less durable compared to, for example, the footed blow drones and the Mythic Blightholders. But if we look at the damage and we focus on the melee damage, it actually is one of the vehicles choices that we have with the most melee damage output per point. If we look versus infantry targets and compare it, for example, with the mower drone, it's very similar here in the dual melee weapon configuration, but it also has a bit more shooting than the 30 blow drone mower. But it especially shines versus vehicles and monster targets and tough targets like this. It's much better than the mower drone and even the Defiler with the Scourge and the big claw. The per point the Helbrute does better with +2 attacks when having, and +1 to wound is really instrumental for the melee damage output of the Helbrute. So actually it has a very high damage here in melee, decent durability versus light fire, less durability versus heavy weapons. And if you do the mixed configurations with meltas and plasmas, the shooting doesn't come up to Defiler range or Plague Scroller or heavy, let's say 30 blow drone with heavy blight launcher. In melee you lose too much melee, so probably as a niche role where it can do some damage versus infantry, versus both infantry and vehicles, and keep it protected from heavy fire. Reaching now to the summary and final thoughts, the Helbrute with its new abilities and 115 points could become an interesting niche role as a melee damage vehicle with a fist flamer plus hammer configuration, or dual fist with flamer configuration. I think are the most interesting in my opinion. Getting +2 attacks in melee for the weapons, and you also have +1 to wound because the enemy will be afflicted is a strong combo. So I think if you want to build a shooting configuration, it will be especially lackluster because you have to take the missile launcher as one of the choices, which as we saw was not a good damage dealer. Fist or hammer plus plasma, melt or las cannon could work like a mixed configuration, but as you saw, then you don't have anything that's better than a Defiler or something like this. But if you go full melee, you have the highest damage output of our vehicles per point. And could they maybe have a niche spot in Mortarions Hammer, where I was doing the Mortarions Hammer detachment in my latest video, and there we have a lot of shooting vehicles that can really be buffed. The shooting can be buffed by Lord of Ireland's and other combos, but we maybe lack something in melee in that detachment. Could the Helbrutes just stay ahead of the pack and try to kill incoming, let's say, tough targets? Could it be together with a mower drone could fill that melee role, especially if people don't have Defilers that can also do a lot in melee? Maybe some Helbrutes to fill out in that detachment where all the others are focused on shooting. Could be interesting. Keep it a bit hidden from enemy heavy weapons. In the Mortarions Hammers detachment, you could also have them, let's say, staged inside ruins, and then you can use the stratagem to go for one command point, you can move or charge through a terrain. So that could be an interesting combo with a Helbrute. So this concludes the video. Let me know what you think about the Helbrute, and yeah, if you have some questions or comments, please post them in this video. Always happy to read your comments, the suggestions, and so on. And please press like and subscribe to my channel. And if you want to further support my efforts to bring you all the math so that you don't have to do all the math, please consider becoming a YouTube member, GeneralJannis supporter, and gets a bit more perks and early views of the videos, for example. So with these words, GeneralJannis signing out. Stay safe out there, and bye-bye.